I was standing outside my own apartment building when I saw me, walking out through the glass doors wearing my favorite burgundy blazer, the one I'd been searching for all week, carrying my leather work bag, laughing at something the doorman said in that way I laugh, except it wasn't me. It was Natasha, my identical twin sister, living my life. Hey everyone, before we dive into this story, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or state in the comments and let me know. Are you team trust your family or team trust your gut? Because what I'm about to tell you will make you question everything. This is the true story of how my twin sister didn't just betray me, she literally became me, and nobody believed me when I tried to stop her. My name is Naomi Bennett, and 3 years ago, I had everything. A corner office at Henderson Financial Group as a senior analyst, a beautiful apartment in downtown Chicago, an amazing relationship, and a family who loved me. I'd worked my entire adult life to build that success. Full scholarship to Northwestern, graduated top of my class, climbed the corporate ladder through pure determination and late nights, and refusing to accept anything less than excellence. My twin sister, Natasha, she'd taken a different path. Dropped out of college after 1 semester, bounced between jobs, always had some scheme or excuse for why things didn't work out. We were identical. Same face, same voice, same DNA. But that's where the similarities ended. I was driven, she was drifting. I planned, she improvised. I built, she borrowed. And apparently, she decided that instead of building her own life, she'd just take mine. It started small. 3 years ago, Natasha had called me crying, saying she'd been evicted and needed a place to crash for just a few weeks. I'd said yes immediately because that's what family does, right? Twin sisters are supposed to have that unbreakable bond. We shared a womb. We shared everything growing up. Of course she could stay with me. Those few weeks turned into 3 months. During that time, she had full access to my apartment, my life, my routine. I was working crazy hours. We were in the middle of a massive merger acquisition, so I barely noticed the small things. My spare apartment key going missing, the way she'd started dressing more like me, styling her hair the same way, how she'd memorized my coffee order, my passwords to streaming services, the names of my colleagues. I definitely didn't notice her studying me, learning me, preparing to become me. The first real warning sign came when Travis, my boyfriend of 2 years, started acting strange, distant, confused. He'd mentioned conversations we'd supposedly had that I had no memory of, plans I'd apparently made and then forgotten. Babe, you told me you wanted to take a break from work and travel for 6 months. You were really passionate about it, said you felt trapped in the corporate world. I never said that. Travis, I love my job, you know that. I just got promoted to senior analyst. Why would I want to leave now? He looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before, like he didn't know who I was. You don't remember our conversation? It was just last week. You called me crying about it. But I hadn't called him crying about anything. I'd been in back-to-back meetings all week, working on the Carlson portfolio. I barely had time to text him, let alone have some emotional breakdown about my career. That's when the cold feeling started in my stomach, that instinct that something was very, very wrong. I started paying closer attention, and that's when I noticed Natasha had my morning routine memorized. She knew which days I went to yoga, which coffee shop I stopped at, what time I left for work. She'd started wearing her hair in my signature low bun. She'd somehow acquired clothes nearly identical to mine. And then she was gone, just disappeared, left my apartment one morning and never came back. No note, no explanation, no returned calls. I was worried at first, filed a missing person report, called all our family members, checked hospitals. Our parents hadn't heard from her. Our younger cousins had no idea where she was. 2 weeks later, I got fired. Not laid off, not let go, fired. called into Mr. Chen's office and terminated for gross misconduct, for things I hadn't done, things I didn't even understand. Naomi, the inappropriate conduct with clients, the unauthorized access to confidential files, the erratic behavior. Naomi, we gave you every chance, Mr. Chen said, looking at me with this mixture of disappointment and something else, pity, maybe. What inappropriate conduct? What files? Mr. Chen, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't make this worse by lying, Lauren from HR cut in, sliding a folder across the desk. We have documentation, emails from your account, security footage, witness statements from multiple colleagues. I opened the folder with shaking hands. The emails were sent from my work account, but I hadn't written them. The security footage showed someone who looked exactly like me, accessing restricted files at times when I had documented alibis. The witness statements described behavior that wasn't mine, aggressive outbursts, inappropriate comments, showing up to work obviously intoxicated. But in every photo, every video, every description, the woman looked exactly like me. Same face, same hair, same clothes. It was Natasha. I'm not me, I whispered, but I could see in their faces they didn't believe me. I have a twin sister. This is my twin sister. Miss Bennett, we're aware you have a sister, Lauren said carefully, in that tone people use when they think you're unstable. But these are all time-stamped when you were scheduled to be at work. Your ID badge was scanned, your laptop was used, your access codes were entered. Because she had all of those things. She'd had 3 months living in my apartment to steal them, to copy them, to become me. I walked out of that office in a daze, stood on the sidewalk outside Henderson Financial Group, the building where I'd spent the last 5 years building my career, and felt my entire world crumbling. This couldn't be happening. This was insane. This was... My phone buzzed. A text from Travis. We need to talk. I can't do this anymore. You're not the person I fell in love with. I called him immediately. It rang twice before a woman answered. Hello? Who is this? Where's Travis? Travis can't come to the phone right now. She laughed, my laugh. Oh, wait, Naomi, is this you? God, you sound terrible. Are you okay? Travis mentioned you've been having some issues. Natasha, my blood turned to ice. What are you doing? What am I doing? She sounded amused. I'm living my best life, sis. Or should I say, I'm living your best life. And honestly, I'm doing a way better job at it than you ever did. The line went dead. I stood there on that sidewalk, phone clutched in my hand, and understood with absolute crystalline clarity what was happening. My sister hadn't just stolen my things. She'd stolen my entire identity, my job, my boyfriend, my life. And nobody believed that it wasn't me. I drove straight to my parents' house. If anyone would believe me, it would be them. They'd raised us. They knew us both. They'd be able to see what Natasha was doing. I was wrong. My mother opened the door looking worried. No, beyond worried. Frightened. Like I was some stranger showing up on her doorstep instead of her daughter. Naomi, sweetie, what are you doing here? She didn't move to hug me, didn't invite me in, just stood in the doorway blocking my entrance. Mom, I need to talk to you and Dad. It's about Natasha. Something terrible is happening and I need your help. Oh, honey. Her face crumpled with this awful sympathy. Natasha told us you might show up. She's really worried about you. The world tilted. What? Come inside. She finally stepped aside, but she moved cautiously, like I might be dangerous. Raymond, Naomi's here. My father appeared from the living room, and his expression mirrored my mother's, concerned, wary, sad, like they were looking at someone they loved but didn't quite recognize anymore. What did she tell you? I asked, my voice coming out sharp. What did Natasha say? They exchanged a look. That married couple telepathic communication that says everything without words. Sweetheart, sit down, my father said gently. Let's talk. I don't want to sit down. I want to know what Natasha told me. She said you've been struggling, my mother said softly. She said you've been acting paranoid, making accusations, that you lost your job because you've been behaving erratically. She's really worried about your mental health. My mental health? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, Dad, she's lying. She's stolen my identity. She's been impersonating me. She got me fired. She stole my boyfriend. She's literally living my life and telling everyone I'm the crazy one. Naomi, that doesn't make any sense, my father said. Why would Natasha do that? You're sisters, twins. She loves you. Does she? Because loving someone doesn't usually involve destroying their entire life. Honey, listen to yourself, my mother pleaded. These accusations, they're not rational. Natasha showed us the emails from your company. She showed us the documentation. You were let go because of your behavior, not because of some conspiracy. Those emails weren't from me. She has access to my accounts. She's using my passwords, my laptop, my security badge. She spent 3 months living in my apartment learning everything about me so she could replace me. My mother's eyes filled with tears. This is exactly what she said would happen. She said you'd blame her instead of accepting that you need help. I don't need help. I need you to believe me. My voice cracked. I'm your daughter. I'm telling you the truth. When have I ever lied to you? You haven't. Not intentionally. But sweetheart, we talked to Natasha just yesterday. She came by for dinner. She's doing really well. She got your old position at Henderson Financial. She's in therapy working through some past issues. She's really turned her life around. We're so proud of how far she's come. My old position? At Henderson Financial? The job I'd built from the ground up, the career I'd sacrificed everything for, and they were proud of her for stealing it? That's not Natasha working at Henderson, I said desperately. That's Natasha pretending to be me. Don't you understand? She's using my name, my credentials, my reputation. Everyone thinks she's me. Naomi, my mother took my hand, and I saw it in her eyes. She thought I was delusional. She thought I'd had some kind of breakdown. We love you so much, and we want to help you, but you have to be willing to accept that help. This paranoia about your sister, it's not healthy. It's not paranoia if it's actually happening. Then prove it, my father said. If what you're saying is true, prove it to us. How? She looks exactly like me. She sounds like me. She's memorized my entire life. What proof would you even accept? Silence. Because they didn't have an answer. Because in their minds, I was the one acting strange, showing up frantic with wild accusations against my twin sister, who they'd just had a lovely dinner with. We think you should talk to someone, my mother said finally. A therapist, someone who can help you work through whatever you're going through. We can help you find someone, help you get the support you need. I don't need a therapist. I need my family to believe me. We want to believe you, sweetheart, but you're asking us to believe that your twin sister orchestrated an elaborate scheme to steal your identity, and that's just... They trailed off, but the implication was clear. That's just crazy. That's just the delusion of someone having a mental health crisis. I looked between my parents, these people who'd raised me, who'd been at every school play and graduation and promotion celebration, and saw strangers. Or maybe I was the stranger now. Maybe Natasha had already replaced me so completely that even my own parents couldn't tell the difference. Fine, I said, standing up. Don't believe me, but when the truth comes out, and it will come out, remember this conversation. Remember that I came to you for help, and you chose her lies over my truth. I walked out before they could respond, before I could see the pity and concern on their faces, the way they'd look at each other and whisper about getting me to treatment, about how they'd seen signs but hadn't wanted to acknowledge them. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel and let myself feel it. The total isolation of knowing the truth while everyone around you believes a lie. It's a special kind of hell, being gaslit by your own family, being told that your reality isn't real, that your memories are false, that your perception of your own life can't be trusted. But here's what I realized in that moment. If my own parents didn't believe me, nobody would. Not Travis, not my friends, not my colleagues. Natasha had played this perfectly. She'd laid the groundwork, planted the seeds of doubt, created a narrative where she was the stable, successful twin, and I was the unstable, paranoid one. Nobody was going to save me. Nobody was going to investigate or help or even listen. If I wanted my life back, I was going to have to prove it myself. And that meant I needed evidence. Real, undeniable, impossible to refute evidence that Natasha Bennett and Naomi Bennett were two different people and that she had stolen everything that made me who I was. I pulled out my phone and started researching private investigators, identity theft lawyers, forensic accountants. This was going to take time. This was going to take money I didn't have anymore. This was going to require patience and strategy and playing the long game. But I had something Natasha didn't count on. I was smarter than her. I'd always been smarter, and I was about to prove it. The first month after losing everything was the lowest point of my life. I moved into a cramped studio apartment in a neighborhood I couldn't afford on my rapidly depleting savings. Filed for unemployment, which felt like admitting defeat. Spent days in my bathrobe scrolling through social media, watching Natasha live my life in real time. Because she wasn't hiding. Why would she? Everyone thought she was me. There were Instagram posts from my old office, her as me standing with colleagues I'd mentored, celebrating deals I'd laid the groundwork for. The captions were in my writing style, using my phrases, tagging people I knew. The comments were all congratulatory, all positive, all from people who had no idea they were engaging with an imposter. "Naomi, you're killing it," one of my former colleagues commented under a post. "So proud of you, girl," from another. "That presentation was fire. Chen couldn't stop raving about you," from Zoe, who'd been my cubicle neighbor for 3 years. Each comment felt like a knife. These were my relationships, my accomplishments, my reputation, and she was collecting them like trophies. But it was the post with Travis that made me physically sick. A photo of them, him and her, him and my face, at my favorite restaurant, the place he'd taken me on our first date. Her caption, 2 years with this amazing man, grateful every single day. 2 years. That was our anniversary, the anniversary of when Travis and I had started dating. She'd just taken it, claimed our relationship timeline as her own. And Travis, my Travis, had commented, "Love you, babe. Here's to forever." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. I wanted to show up at that restaurant and expose her in front of everyone. But I didn't, because I'd learned my lesson with my parents. Confronting her publicly without proof would only make me look more unstable, more paranoid, more like the crazy ex-girlfriend she was painting me as. So instead, I started documenting everything. I created a private Instagram account and followed both her public profile and mine. Every post she made as me, I screenshotted with timestamps. Every comment, every location tag, every interaction, I saved it all. I reached out to Simone, my best friend from college. She's the one person who'd known me before Natasha had access to my life. If anyone might see through the deception, it would be her. We met at a coffee shop in her neighborhood, far from anywhere I used to frequent, anywhere Natasha might show up. "Girl, where have you been?" Simone hugged me tight, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like someone actually saw me. "I've been trying to reach you, but your number's disconnected. I even stopped by your apartment, but the doorman said you moved." I didn't disconnect my number. She did. and I didn't move. I got kicked out. Simone, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really listen to me, okay? Don't interrupt, don't judge, just hear me out. For the next hour, I told her everything, every detail of Natasha's systematic identity theft, every piece of the puzzle that I'd been too close to see until it was too late, every way she'd positioned herself to take over my life. Simone listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious with each revelation. When she finished, she sat back and let out a long breath. She paused. That's insane. Naomi, that's absolutely insane. My heart sank. You don't believe me either. No, I mean it's insane that she did this, that she could do this. She grabbed my hand across the table. Girl, I believe you. Of course I believe you. I've known you since freshman orientation. I know when you're telling the truth. I almost cried from sheer relief. You're the first person who's believed me. Your parents don't believe you either? They think I'm having a breakdown. Natasha told them I'm mentally unstable, and they bought it completely. Okay, Simone pulled out her phone. Okay, we need to be strategic about this. If she's using your identity for work, there has to be documentation, tax records, employment verification, background checks. She can't fake all of that. She doesn't have to fake it. She literally is using my credentials, my social security number, my degrees, my employment history. It's all actually mine. She's just claiming to be the person those credentials belong to. But she'd need ID, right? To get hired, to do anything official, she'd need to prove she's you. She has my driver's license, or at least she had access to it for 3 months. It wouldn't be hard to get a duplicate made. Simone thought for a moment. What about biometrics, fingerprints, retinal scans, anything that would prove you're two different people? We're identical twins. Our DNA is the same. Our fingerprints are similar enough that it wouldn't be definitive proof, and unless I can get her to submit to testing, which she'd never voluntarily do, it's all theoretical anyway. So we need to catch her being herself, Simone said. We need proof that she's not you, proof that she's doing things, saying things, being places you could possibly be. But how? She's so careful. She's had 3 years to perfect this performance. Everyone slips up eventually, and when she does, we'll be ready. But Naomi, this is going to take time, and you need to be smart about this. If you go off half-cocked, try to confront her publicly without ironclad proof, it'll just reinforce the narrative that you're unstable. I know. Trust me, I know. I'd learned that lesson the hard way. You need a lawyer, not just any lawyer, someone who specializes in identity theft, fraud, all of that. Someone who can navigate the legal complexities of this. I can't afford a lawyer. I can barely afford rent right now. Then we find you a job, something that pays cash, something off the books where she can't interfere. You need money to fight this, and you need to stay under her radar while you build your case. Over the next few weeks, Simone helped me piece together a plan. I got a job waiting tables at a restaurant in the suburbs under a fake name, Sarah Johnson. It wasn't much, but it was cash money that Natasha couldn't trace. Simone loaned me money for a consultation with an identity theft attorney, a sharp woman named Nicole Chen, no relation to my former boss, who'd handled complex fraud cases. This is unprecedented, Nicole said after I'd explained my situation. I've seen identity theft cases, but nothing quite like this. The challenge is that she's not pretending to be you illegally. She is you in every legal sense that matters. Same name, same credentials, same documentation. So there's nothing I can do? I didn't say that, but proving identity theft when the thief is your identical twin who has legitimate access to all your information, that's going to require building an airtight case. We need multiple forms of evidence: financial records showing fraudulent activity, witness testimony from people who can confirm you were in 2 places at once, documentation of her deception, everything. How long will that take? Months, maybe longer, and it's going to be expensive. I don't care about expensive. I care about getting my life back. Nicole studied me for a long moment. Okay, then let's get started. Building a case against someone who has access to your entire life is harder than you'd think. Every step forward felt like 3 steps back. Every piece of evidence I collected could be explained away. Every witness I tried to contact had been poisoned against me by Natasha's careful narrative. But I kept going, because what other choice did I have? I started by documenting my own life meticulously. Every day, I kept a detailed journal with timestamps, photos, GPS locations, receipts, anything that could prove where I was and what I was doing at specific times. If I could show Naomi Bennett was in 2 places at once, that would be the first crack in her facade. I also started attending my old gym, the place I'd gone 3 mornings a week for years. I knew Natasha had taken over my membership, using my account to maintain the illusion that she was me. I changed my appearance slightly, cut my hair shorter, wore glasses, dressed differently than I used to. I became a shadow version of myself, watching her perform my life. The first time I saw her there, I almost confronted her immediately. She was on my favorite treadmill, wearing my old Northwestern workout tank, chatting with DeAndre, the trainer I'd worked with for 2 years, laughing at his jokes, being charming and friendly, and completely comfortable in my life. But I didn't confront her. Instead, I took out my phone and started recording. Time-stamped, GPS-tagged video evidence of her pretending to be me. "Hey, Naomi," DeAndre called out to her. "You're killing it this morning. Whatever you changed in your routine is really working." "Thanks, Dee," Natasha called back. "Just trying to stay consistent." I recorded it all. Her using my name, my trainer confirming her identity, the date and timestamp. This was evidence. Over the next few months, I collected dozens of similar videos. Her at the coffee shop where everyone knew Naomi, her at my favorite lunch spot ordering my usual, her picking up dry cleaning under my name. Each interaction was another piece of proof that she was systematically impersonating me. But the biggest breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Brian, an IT security specialist I'd met online in an identity theft support forum. He'd reached out after seeing my post about my situation, offering to help. "Your twin is using your digital identity, right? Email, social media, work accounts?" "All of it. She has my passwords, my security questions, everything." "Then she's leaving a digital trail. Every time she logs into one of your accounts from her device, there's metadata, IP addresses, device IDs, geolocation data. If we can get access to that information, we can prove that Naomi Bennett is logging in from 2 different locations using 2 different devices." "How do we get access to that?" "That's the tricky part. We'd need to subpoena the companies, which requires law enforcement involvement or a court order. But there might be another way. Do you have any accounts that you still have access to? Anything she hasn't changed the password on?" I thought about it. Most of my accounts had been locked or changed, but there was one she might have overlooked: my old cloud storage backup. I'd set it up years ago and barely used it, but it was linked to an email address I'd created in college that I rarely checked. I tried logging in. To my shock, it worked. "I'm in," I told Brian. "I have access to my old backup." "Perfect. Now we need to set up monitoring on your current accounts without her knowing. Can you access your email remotely without her getting a notification?" Over the next few weeks, Brian walked me through setting up sophisticated tracking. We created shadow access to my email accounts, my social media, even my old work accounts that she somehow maintained access to. Every time she logged in, we captured the metadata. Every email she sent as me, we archived with full headers showing IP addresses and locations. The data was damning. While I was in my studio apartment in one neighborhood, Naomi Bennett was logging in from an apartment complex 15 miles away, the luxury building where Travis lived. The same IP address appeared repeatedly, always when she was supposed to be at my old apartment address. "This is it," Brian said, reviewing the data. "This proves that Naomi Bennett is in two places at once, using two different internet connections. Combined with your other evidence, this could be enough." I took everything to Detective Maria Santos, the identity theft investigator Nicole had connected me with. Detective Santos was initially skeptical. Identity theft cases involving twins were notoriously complicated. But when I showed her the evidence, her demeanor changed. "This is substantial," she said, spreading out the documents on her desk. "We have digital evidence showing anomalous access patterns. We have video evidence of her using your identity. We have financial records showing she's been receiving your paychecks. And we have witness testimony from your friend Simone confirming you're two different people. Is it enough to press charges?" "It's enough to investigate officially. I'll need to interview your sister, which means she'll know we're looking into her case. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Natasha's reaction when she realized I'd been building a case against her. She'd been so confident in her perfect crime, so certain that nobody would believe me. The look on her face when she realized I had proof would almost be worth everything she'd put me through. "I'm ready," I said. "I've been ready for months." Detective Santos nodded. "Then let's bring your sister in for questioning." The day Detective Santos called Natasha in for questioning, I wasn't there. Nicole advised against it, said my presence would only complicate things, make it look like a personal vendetta rather than a legitimate investigation. So instead, I sat in my studio apartment, checking my phone every 5 minutes, waiting for news. Simone came over to keep me company. We ordered pizza and tried to watch a movie, but I couldn't focus. All I could think about was Natasha in that interrogation room, finally being confronted with evidence of what she'd done. My phone rang at 6:47 p.m. Detective Santos. "She denied everything," Santos said without preamble. "Claims she hasn't seen you in months, has no idea why you'd make these accusations, suggested you're having a mental health crisis." She was very convincing. My heart sank. But the evidence! She has explanations for all of it. Says the IP address evidence just shows she was visiting Travis, her boyfriend. Says the videos of her at your old haunts are just coincidence. She likes those places too. You used to go together. Says the financial irregularities are the result of you giving her access to your accounts when she was staying with you. That's all lies. "I know that, Miss Bennett, but here's the problem. Without getting her to admit to the deception or without catching her in a provable lie, it's going to be very hard to prosecute. She's smart, she's prepared, and she's had 3 years to build a defensive narrative. So that's it? She just gets away with it?" "I didn't say that. We're continuing the investigation, but you need to be patient. These things take time." After Santos hung up, I sat there feeling defeated. All those months of gathering evidence, and Natasha had talked her way around it. Of course she had. She'd been talking her way out of consequences our entire lives. I'd just been too loyal to see it. "Don't give up," Simone said. "You've come too far." "What if she's too good at this? What if she's thought of everything?" "Nobody thinks of everything. She'll slip up, and when she does, you'll be there to catch it." The next few weeks were tense. I knew Natasha knew about the investigation now, which meant she'd be even more careful. But it also meant something else. She'd be scared, and scared people make mistakes. I kept up my surveillance, kept documenting everything, and then 3 weeks after the interrogation, Natasha made her first real error. She posted on Instagram, on my Instagram, the one she'd taken over, a photo of herself at a work conference in Miami, killing it at the Henderson Financial Southeast Summit, #BossBabe, living my best life. Except I knew for a fact there was no Henderson Financial Conference that week. I'd spent 5 years there. I knew their schedule, their events, their patterns. This was a lie, a visible, provable lie. I called Detective Santos immediately. She's claiming to be at a work conference that doesn't exist. I can get documentation from Henderson Financial proving there's no summit scheduled. This is her making up a work event to look legitimate. Or, Santos said carefully, she's using summit casually and is actually at some other work function. Then we verify it. We contact her employer and confirm where she is and what she's doing. Her employer thinks she's you, Miss Bennett. If we start asking questions, we tip our hand about the investigation. I felt my frustration mounting. So what? We just let her keep lying? No, we build the case slowly and carefully. These things take time. But I was running out of time. My savings were almost gone. My unemployment was about to run out. I was living day to day, meal to meal, while Natasha lived in luxury on my reputation. That's when Brian called with interesting news. I've been monitoring her activity and I noticed something weird. She's been accessing an email address that doesn't match any of your known accounts. It's registered under the name Tasha Bennett. Tasha, her nickname, an account I'd never created. Can you get into it? Not legally, no, but I can see the account exists and has been active for over 2 years. Whatever she's doing, she's keeping it separate from your identity. This could be where she's planning, coordinating, keeping records she doesn't want mixed with her Naomi persona. We need to get into that account. Naomi, I can't help you break the law. If you access her private email without authorization, it's evidence of fraud. It's also illegal search and seizure. Anything you find won't be admissible in court and you could face charges yourself. He was right. I knew he was right, but I was desperate. That night, I did something I'm not proud of. I tried every password combination I could think of for that Tasha Bennett account. Our birthday, our mother's maiden name, our childhood addresses. Nothing worked. And then I remembered Natasha had a cat when we were teenagers, a tabby named Whiskers that she'd been obsessed with. I tried Whiskers 2004, the year she got him. The account opened. Inside were years of emails, correspondence with identity brokers, searches for how to assume someone's identity, draft messages practicing my writing style, screenshots of my social media posts that she'd studied to perfect her impersonation, even a document titled The Naomi Project that outlined her entire plan in chilling detail. It was all there, the smoking gun, the proof that this had been deliberate, calculated, systematic identity theft. But Brian was right. I'd accessed it illegally. If I tried to use this evidence, I'd be the one facing charges. I sat there staring at years of premeditated fraud and realized I was in an impossible position. I had the proof I needed, but I couldn't use it. Unless I found another way. I spent the next week reading through every email in that Tasha Bennett account, not to use as evidence, I couldn't, but to understand Natasha's plans, her methods, her weak points. And that's when I found it, her biggest vulnerability. She was getting greedy. In the emails, I discovered she'd been using my credentials to apply for even bigger positions at other financial firms. She'd had 3 interviews in the past month for senior director roles, positions that would require extensive background checks, reference verification, even security clearances for some of the government contract work. She was confident enough in her deception that she was trying to level up, and that confidence would be her downfall. Because here's what she didn't know. I still had relationships in this industry, people who'd worked with me before Henderson, who knew my actual work style, my actual knowledge base, people who could recognize an imposter if they knew what to look for. I reached out to one of them, Mr. Howard Chen's former colleague at a different firm, someone who'd mentored me early in my career and who I knew had recently moved to Phillips & Associates, one of the companies where Natasha had applied using my name. Richard, it's Naomi Bennett. I know this is going to sound strange, but I need your help with something. We met at a quiet bar in the financial district. Richard looked older than I remembered, more gray hair, deeper lines around his eyes. But when he smiled at me, it was the same warm smile from when he taught me advanced portfolio analysis years ago. Naomi, I haven't seen you since you left Mercer & Son. What's going on? I told him everything. Every detail of Natasha's deception, every piece of evidence I'd gathered, and then I told him my plan. She's applied for the senior director position at Phillips and Associates, I said, using my credentials, my experience, my reputation. If you're involved in the hiring process, you can help me prove she's not who she claims to be. I am on the hiring committee, actually, Richard said slowly. We've been impressed with her resume. We have her scheduled for a final interview next week. Then that's where we catch her. You ask questions that only I would know the answers to, specific details about projects we worked on together, specific methodologies I developed, technical questions about work I actually did. She can't fake that level of detail because she wasn't there. But if she's been studying your work for years, she's studied my public work, my presentations, my published analyses, my visible achievements, but she doesn't know the behind-the-scenes details. She doesn't know the late-night conversations we had about ethical portfolio management. She doesn't know about the Kellerman crisis that we handled together that never made it into official reports. She doesn't know the real story behind the Morrison acquisition. Richard leaned back, understanding dawning in his eyes. We set a trap. Exactly. And we record the interview. When she can't answer questions about my own career, when she gets basic facts wrong about work I actually did, that's proof she's not me. That's actually brilliant, Richard said. But Naomi, we need to involve Phillips and Associates' legal team. If we're setting up a sting operation, even an informal one, we need to do it right. Can you make that happen? I can try. Give me a few days. 3 days later, Richard called me back. Phillips and Associates was on board. They'd been concerned about identity fraud in hiring. It was a growing problem in the financial sector, and they were willing to help expose it if we had a legitimate case. The interview is Friday at 2 p.m., Richard told me. We'll have our head of security there, recording everything. We'll ask the questions you provided, and Detective Santos can be standing by if things go the way we think they will. Thank you, Richard. You have no idea what this means to me. Actually, I do. I've known you for years, Naomi. I know your work ethic, your integrity, your brilliance. When this woman showed up claiming to be you but couldn't discuss the finer points of the Chen methodology we developed, I had my doubts. Now it all makes sense. Friday morning, I met with Detective Santos to coordinate. She'd be waiting in an unmarked car in Phillips and Associates' garage, ready to make an arrest if Natasha's deception was proven during the interview. This is highly unusual, but if it works, it'll be one hell of a case. It will work. I had more confidence than I felt. She's gotten too comfortable. She thinks she's untouchable. That's when people make mistakes. At 1:45 p.m., I watched from a coffee shop across the street as a woman who looked exactly like me walked into Phillips and Associates building. She was wearing my favorite interview suit, or an exact copy of it. Her hair was styled the way I used to style mine. She walked with my posture, my confidence, my presence. It was like watching a ghost of myself, a doppelganger who'd stolen not just my identity, but my very essence. But in 45 minutes, that ghost was about to be exposed. I waited in that coffee shop with my phone in my hand, watching the time tick by. 2 p.m., 2:15, 2:30. Each minute felt like an hour. At 2:47, my phone buzzed with a text from Richard. You need to get over here, now. I ran across the street, my heart pounding. The security guard at Phillips and Associates was expecting me. Richard had put me on the list. I took the elevator to the 14th floor, and Richard met me as soon as the doors opened. He's good, he said, his expression serious. Better than we expected. He knew most of the answers. My heart sunk. Most of them? But not all of them. And more importantly, he slipped on the Morrison acquisition, got a key fact completely wrong, something only someone who wasn't actually there would get wrong. We walked into the conference room. Natasha was still there, sitting at the table with 3 other executives. When she saw me walk in, her face went white. What? She started. Hello, Natasha. Or should I call you Naomi, since that's the name you've been using for 3 years? The conference room went completely silent. Natasha's face cycled through emotions, shock, fear, anger, calculation, before settling on indignant confusion. I'm sorry, do I know you? "Who is this?" she asked, turning to Richard and the other executives. "This," Richard said calmly, "is Naomi Bennett, the real Naomi Bennett." "I don't understand what's happening here. This woman looks like me, obviously, but I don't know who she is or what she's doing interrupting my interview." "Drop it, Natasha." I walked further into the room. "They know. I've told them everything, and you just proved it yourself by getting the Morrison acquisition details wrong." I watched her mind racing, trying to figure out how to spin this, how to maintain the lie. She'd always been quick on her feet, always able to talk her way out of trouble. "You're my sister," she said finally, her voice dripping with false concern. "And I'm really worried about you. Everyone is. You've been having some kind of breakdown, making these accusations." The Morrison acquisition was never about international expansion. It was about securing domestic pharmaceutical distribution rights. But you said it was about breaking into European markets because that's what you read in the public press release. You weren't in the meetings. You didn't do the actual analysis. You didn't pull the all-nighters working out the logistics. I did. Natasha's jaw clenched. Anyone could mix up details from years ago. "It was 18 months ago," Richard interjected, "and it was the biggest deal of Naomi's career. The real Naomi would never get those details wrong." "Fine," Natasha said, shifting tactics. "So I got one detail wrong. That doesn't prove anything. We're identical twins. We look the same. We worked in the same field. Obviously, there's going to be some confusion." "Show them your ID," I said. "What?" "Your driver's license. Show them your ID. Let's see what name is on it." She hesitated. It was only for a second, but everyone in that room saw it, the crack in her performance. "I don't have to prove anything to you," she said. "This is harassment. I'm calling my lawyer." "Your lawyer or my lawyer? Because Detective Maria Santos is downstairs right now waiting to arrest you for identity theft, fraud, and about 17 other charges. But before she does, I want everyone in this room to see exactly who you are." I pulled out my own driver's license and placed it on the conference table. "This is my identification. It shows my name is Naomi Marie Bennett. My address is listed in Chicago, and it's been valid for the past 4 years. Then I pulled out printed copies of the evidence Brian and I had gathered. This is metadata showing that Naomi Bennett has been logging into accounts from 2 different IP addresses, 2 different devices, 2 different locations for the past 3 years. This is surveillance footage of you using my identity at my old gym, at my favorite restaurants, at business functions. This is testimony from my best friend Simone, confirming that we are 2 different people. This is documentation from Henderson Financial showing discrepancies in my employment record that only make sense if someone else has been pretending to be me." I spread it all out on the table. Months of evidence, months of proof, months of building a case that couldn't be denied. "And this," I said, pulling out the final piece, "is a recording of you on the phone with me 3 years ago, admitting that you were living my life and doing a better job at it than I ever did. You called me from my boyfriend's phone. You thought you'd won." Natasha's face had gone from white to red. I could see her calculating, trying to figure out if she could still spin this, still maintain the deception. But there was nowhere left to run. "You destroyed my life," I said, and my voice was steady, strong, clear. "You took my job, my home, my relationship, my reputation. You convinced my own parents that I was mentally unstable. You isolated me from everyone I cared about. And for what? Because you were jealous? Because you couldn't be bothered to build your own success?" "You had everything," she said suddenly, and there was real venom in her voice now. "Perfect Naomi, top of the class Naomi, successful career Naomi. You made it look so easy, like you didn't even have to try. Do you know what it's like living in your shadow, being the other twin, the one who couldn't hack it? So you decided to become me instead of becoming yourself." "Why not?" she laughed bitterly. I'm just as smart as you, just as capable. The only difference is that you had opportunities and I didn't. You had mentors and connections and a perfect little path laid out. I had to fight for everything. We had the same parents, Natasha, the same upbringing, the same opportunities. The difference is that I worked for what I got, and you expected it to be handed to you. Ladies, the head of security interrupted, this is all very dramatic, but Ms. Bennett, the real Ms. Bennett, has asked me to record this conversation. Everything you've both said has been documented, and I think it's time we call Detective Santos. Natasha turned to him, panic finally showing through her careful mask. You can't do this. You don't understand. She's been harassing me. She's been stalking me. She's mentally unstable. Ask anyone who knows her. We did, Richard said quietly. We contacted several of your colleagues at Henderson Financial, and you know what we discovered? None of them could provide specific examples of the erratic behavior that supposedly got Naomi fired. All they could say was that they'd heard she was acting strange, that they were rumors, that HR had documentation, but nobody had actually witnessed anything themselves. Because it was all you, I said. Every email, every incident, every complaint, it was you, pretending to be me, sabotaging my reputation so thoroughly that when you took over my identity completely, nobody questioned it. The security head spoke into his radio. Detective Santos, please come to conference room B. We have confirmation of identity fraud. Natasha looked around the room at us, at the executives who'd been ready to hire her, at Richard who'd set the trap, at me standing there with 3 years of evidence. I saw the moment she realized it was over, really, truly over. This isn't fair, she said, and she actually sounded like she believed it. You have no idea what it's like being your shadow, being compared to you every single day of my life. Then you should have found your own light instead of trying to steal mine. Detective Santos entered the conference room, her badge visible, her expression professional. Natasha Bennett, you need to come with me. You're being arrested for identity theft, fraud, criminal impersonation, and about 17 other charges. You have the right to silence. As Santos read Natasha her rights and led her out of the conference room in handcuffs, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace. Not satisfaction or victory or even vindication. Just peace. It was over. Finally. After all this time, it was over. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media attention, and slowly reclaiming my life piece by piece. Natasha's arrest made news, not nationally, but enough that anyone in Chicago's financial sector heard about it. Twin sister assumes identity in elaborate fraud scheme, the headlines read. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Former colleagues reaching out to apologize, journalists wanting interviews, even my parents calling to say they were sorry for not believing me. Everyone who dismissed me as crazy suddenly wanted to talk about how they'd always had doubts or sensed something was off. The apologies felt hollow. Where were these people when I needed them? But I tried not to be bitter. I tried to focus on moving forward instead of dwelling on what I'd lost. Henderson Financial called, Mr. Chen himself. Naomi, I owe you an enormous apology, he said when I answered. What happened to you under my watch? The fact that we enabled this fraud without proper verification, it's inexcusable. I've already terminated the employment of Natasha Bennett, and I'd like to offer you your position back, with a promotion, actually, and significant back pay for the time you were wrongfully terminated. Part of me wanted to accept immediately. It was my job, my career, my dream position. But another part of me, the part that had spent 3 years being gaslit and dismissed, hesitated. Mr. Chen, I appreciate the offer, but I need to think about whether I want to return to a company that fired me without proper investigation, that accepted someone else's word over documentation, that didn't verify the identity of the person they were hiring. That's fair, he said quietly. Take your time. The offer stands whenever you're ready. Travis called too. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Naomi, God, I'm so sorry. His voice was thick with emotion. I feel like such an idiot. I should have known. I should have seen the differences. I thought you were dating your girlfriend, I said. You had no reason to suspect she was actually my twin sister impersonating me. This isn't your fault. Travis, but I should have believed you when you tried to tell me something was wrong. That day you called and said she wasn't you, I thought you were being paranoid or jealous or something. I didn't listen. No, you didn't, I agreed, and that hurt. But Travis, even if you had believed me, we're done. You dated my sister for 3 years thinking she was me. You built a relationship with her, not me. Whatever we had died when she took my place. I understand, he said, but for what it's worth, I'm sorry, and I hope you find someone who deserves you. I hope so too. My parents came to see me in person. They showed up at my studio apartment looking older, more fragile than I remembered. My mother had been crying. My father looked like he hadn't slept in days. Naomi, sweetheart, my mother started, but I held up my hand. Don't make excuses or try to explain. You chose to believe her over me. Your own daughter told you the truth and you thought she was crazy. We didn't think you were crazy, my father protested. You did, though. That's exactly what you thought. And instead of investigating, instead of questioning, instead of even considering that I might be telling the truth, you sent me away and had dinner with the daughter who was lying to you. My mother sobbed. We didn't know. She was so convincing, and you were so... I was so what? So desperate? So emotional? So insistent that something impossible was happening? I was telling you the truth, and my emotion, my fear, my pain, that's what made you doubt me? How can we make this right? My father asked. I thought about it. Thought about all the times I'd needed them over the past 3 years. All the times I'd been alone, scared, struggling. All the times their support would have made the difference between surviving and thriving. I don't know if you can, I said honestly. I need time to process this. I need time to figure out if I can forgive you for not believing me. Because it's not just that you didn't believe me, it's that you believed her. You chose her lies over my truth, and that betrayal cut deeper than anything she did to me. They left looking devastated. Part of me felt guilty for being so harsh, but a bigger part of me knew I deserved to express that pain, to not just forgive immediately because it would make them feel better. Simone, meanwhile, had become my rock. She'd believed me from the beginning, supported me through everything, never wavered even when everyone else abandoned me. Thank you, I told her over dinner one night. I couldn't have done this without you. That's what best friends are for, Simone said simply, believing you when the whole world thinks you're crazy. I'm just glad you finally got justice. It doesn't feel like justice, though, I admitted. It feels like I survived something terrible, like I escaped. But justice would have been her never being able to do this in the first place. Maybe, Simone said, but you can't change the past. You can only decide what you do with your future. And that was the question, wasn't it? What did I do now? I'd gotten my identity back. My name was mine again. The legal system was prosecuting Natasha for her crimes. But I'd lost 3 years of my life, 3 years of career advancement, relationship building, financial stability, 3 years I could never get back. I could go back to Henderson Financial, try to pick up where I left off, or I could do something different, something new, something that was entirely mine, unburdened by the past. The choice felt overwhelming, but it also felt like freedom. The trial was scheduled for 6 months after Natasha's arrest. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Marcus Williams, told me that identity theft cases were tricky, especially twin cases, but we had enough evidence to pursue multiple felony charges. The key, she explained during one of our prep sessions, is establishing intent and pattern. This wasn't a one-time mistake or misunderstanding. This was a systematic, premeditated campaign to assume your identity and destroy your life. That's what we need the jury to understand. I had to testify, of course. Had to sit in that witness stand and recount every detail of how my sister had methodically stolen my life. Had to remain calm and composed while Natasha's defense attorney tried to paint me as vindictive, mentally unstable, the troubled twin who was jealous of her sister's success. "Isn't it true that you've struggled with anxiety?" the defense attorney asked. "I've been in therapy, yes. Dealing with the trauma of having my entire identity stolen will do that to a person." "And isn't it true that you were fired from Henderson Financial for erratic behavior?" "I was fired because my sister was sabotaging my reputation while impersonating me. That's what this trial is about." Or is this trial about a woman who can't accept responsibility for her own failures and needs someone to blame? The prosecution objected, and the judge sustained it, but the damage was done. That's how these things work. Plant doubt, suggest alternative narratives, make the victim defend themselves against accusations instead of focusing on the actual crime. But then the prosecution presented the evidence, all of it. The digital forensics showing two different people accessing the same accounts, the surveillance footage, the witness testimony from Richard and the Phillips and Associates executives, the recording of Natasha admitting what she'd done. The most powerful moments came when they played the recording from my phone 3 years ago. Natasha's voice, my voice, saying, "I'm living your best life, and honestly, I'm doing a way better job at it than you ever did." The courtroom was silent. Even Natasha's lawyer couldn't spin that. When Natasha took the stand in her own defense, I watched her carefully. She was good, I'd give her that. She cried at all the right moments, expressed remorse in ways that seemed genuine, explained her actions as the result of years of living in my shadow and finally snapping under the pressure. "I never meant to hurt her," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I just wanted to know what it felt like to be successful, to be respected, to be the sister everyone was proud of. It started small, just pretending for a day, wearing her clothes, seeing what it felt like, and then it snowballed. I know what I did was wrong. I know I hurt my sister terribly, but I'm not a monster. I'm just someone who made terrible choices because I felt inadequate my entire life." It was a good performance. Sympathetic, human, relatable even. But then the prosecutor asked one question that demolished everything. "Miss Bennett, if you were so overcome with inadequacy and pain, why didn't you seek therapy? Why didn't you talk to your family? Why didn't you build your own life instead of destroying your sister's?" Natasha hesitated, and in that hesitation, everyone saw the truth. This hadn't been a moment of weakness or a mental health crisis. This had been calculated, deliberate, cruel. "I don't know," she said finally. "I wish I had. I wish I'd made different choices." "But you didn't make different choices, Miss Bennett. You made a choice to steal your sister's identity. You made a choice to sabotage her career. You made a choice to gaslight her and convince everyone she was mentally unstable. You made a choice to live her life while she lost everything. Those weren't mistakes, Miss Bennett. Those were choices, premeditated, systematic choices that you made every single day for 3 years." The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, their verdict was unanimous: guilty on all counts. Natasha was sentenced to 5 years in prison, followed by 5 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay full restitution for all financial damages: my lost wages, my legal fees, the cost of rebuilding my credit and my life. The judge's statement during sentencing was scathing. "Miss Bennett, what you did to your sister goes beyond ordinary crime. You didn't just steal money or property. You stole her identity, her reputation, relationships, the very things that make a person who they are. You systematically destroyed her life while building a false one for yourself. This was not a crime of passion or desperation. This was cold, calculated, and cruel. Society must send a clear message that such violations will not be tolerated." I sat in that courtroom listening to the sentence and felt hollow. I'd wanted this. I'd fought for this. But now that justice had been served, I didn't feel the satisfaction I'd expected. Because 5 years wouldn't give me back the 3 years I'd lost. Restitution wouldn't restore my relationships or erase the trauma. A guilty verdict wouldn't make my family's betrayal hurt less. Justice had been served, but I was still broken. And I had to figure out how to heal. The months after the trial were strange. I'd spent 3 years fighting to prove what had happened to me, to expose Natasha's crimes, to get my life back. Now that it was over, I felt adrift, like I'd been running toward a goal for so long that I'd forgotten what I actually wanted. I turned down Henderson Financial's offer. The money would have been nice, but I couldn't go back there. Too many memories, too many people who doubted me, too many reminders of what I'd lost. Instead, I started working with Nicole Chen, my identity theft attorney. She offered me a position helping other victims navigate the legal complexities of identity fraud. It wasn't the high-powered financial analysis I'd been doing before, but it felt meaningful in a way my old job never had. You understand what they're going through, Nicole said. You've lived it. That makes you invaluable to these cases. She was right. When I sat across from clients who'd had their identity stolen, though never quite as dramatically as mine, I could see their pain, their frustration, their sense of violation. I could give them something nobody had given me in those early days: belief. I believe you became my opening line with every new client. I know how impossible this feels. I know how isolating it is when nobody understands. But I believe you, and we're going to fix this. I also started speaking publicly about my experience. Local news channels wanted interviews. Identity theft prevention organizations wanted me to share my story at conferences. Universities invited me to talk to students about digital security and the importance of protecting your personal information. At first, I was hesitant. Sharing my trauma felt exposing, vulnerable. But then I realized, if my story could help even one person recognize the signs of identity theft early, could prevent even one other victim from going through what I went through, then it was worth the discomfort. The talks led to an unexpected opportunity. A publisher reached out asking if I'd considered writing a book about my experience. A book. My story, in print, permanent, and real. I signed the contract and spent the next year writing. It was therapeutic in ways I hadn't anticipated, putting everything into words, organizing the chaos of those 3 years into a coherent narrative, finding meaning in the suffering. It helped me process what had happened. The book was titled The Other Twin: Surviving Identity Theft by the Person Who Knew Me Best. It was published on the 4-year anniversary of Natasha's arrest. I held the finished copy in my hands and cried, not from sadness, but from a sense of reclamation. She tried to erase me, and instead, I turned that erasure into something permanent and powerful. My relationship with my parents slowly improved. It took time, lots of therapy, lots of difficult conversations, lots of me expressing hurt and them sitting with their guilt. But eventually, we found our way to a new normal. Not the relationship we'd had before, but something more honest, more aware of its fragility. "We failed you," my mother said during one of our family therapy sessions, "and we're going to spend the rest of our lives making up for it." I don't need you to spend your lives making up for it. I just need you to acknowledge that it happened, to admit that you chose wrong, and to promise that if I ever come to you with something serious again, you'll believe me first and question later. "We promise," my father said. "We promise." It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. What surprised me most was the response from strangers. The book led to hundreds of emails from people who'd experienced similar violations, if not identity theft, then other forms of gaslighting, betrayal by family members, situations where nobody believed their truth. They saw themselves in my story. They felt less alone. One email in particular stuck with me. It was from a woman named Jennifer who'd been through something similar with her sister. Reading your story gave me the courage to finally report what happened to me. For years, I thought nobody would believe me, but you proved that the truth comes out eventually. Thank you for not giving up. That's when I understood. My suffering hadn't been meaningless. Natasha had tried to destroy me, but instead, she'd accidentally created something powerful, a voice for people who felt voiceless, a story of survival when everyone said survival was impossible. I also reconnected with some old friends, people who'd believed in Natasha's version of events, but who reached out after the trial to apologize. Some of those friendships couldn't be salvaged. Too much damage, too much time lost. But others found new footing. And then there was Zoe, my old colleague from Henderson Financial. She'd been one of the few people who seemed uncomfortable with the official narrative about my firing, even though she hadn't known why. Something always felt off, she admitted over coffee. The Naomi I knew wouldn't do the things they said you did, but I didn't trust my instincts enough to question it. It's okay, I told her. Natasha was convincing. That was the whole point. Still, Zoe said, I should have been braver. We became friends again, real friends this time, with a relationship built on the acknowledgement of past mistakes and the commitment to do better. Slowly, piece by piece, I rebuilt my life. Not the life I had before, that was gone forever, but a new life, a better life, a life that was authentically, undeniably, completely mine. And Natasha? She was in prison, serving her sentence, facing the consequences of her choices. Justice, it turned out, wasn't about revenge. It was about restoration. And I was finally restored. 2 years into Natasha's sentence, I received a letter. It came to Nicole's office. Natasha didn't have my home address, and I intended to keep it that way. Nicole called me immediately. She wrote to you, Nicole said, from prison. Do you want me to read it first? Screen it? You don't have to read it if you don't want to. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to burn it unread, to refuse to give Natasha any more of my attention or energy. But another part was curious. What could she possibly have to say to me now? Send it to me, I said. I'll decide whether to read it. The letter sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I finally opened it. When I did, I was surprised by what I found. Dear Naomi, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I'm probably the last person you ever want to think about again. But I'm writing this anyway because my therapist says I need to take accountability, and more importantly, because you deserve to hear this from me directly. I'm sorry. I know those words are inadequate. I know they can't undo what I did or give you back what I took, but they're true. I am deeply, genuinely sorry for what I did to you. Being in prison has given me a lot of time to think, to really examine my choices and my motivations. And the truth is, everything I said at trial about feeling inadequate and living in your shadow, that was real. But it doesn't excuse what I did. Lots of people feel inadequate. Lots of people struggle with jealousy or comparison. They don't destroy their siblings' lives. I chose to do what I did, not because I had to, not because I was driven to it by some irresistible force, but because I wanted what you had, and I was too lazy and too entitled to earn it myself. I wanted the shortcut. I wanted the reward without the work. And I convinced myself it was justified. I told myself you had it easy, that things came naturally to you, that you didn't appreciate what you had, but that was a lie I told myself to feel better about my choices. The truth is, I saw how hard you worked. I saw the late nights, the sacrifices, the discipline. I just didn't want to do that work myself. I destroyed your life because it was easier to build my own. There's no way to make that sound less terrible, because it is terrible. It's probably the most terrible thing I could have done to you. You're my twin sister. We shared a womb. We grew up together. You trusted me, and I violated that trust in the most profound way possible. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even think I deserve it. But I want you to know that I see what I did now. I understand the full weight of it, and I will spend the rest of my life living with that understanding. I'm also writing to tell you that I've signed papers relinquishing any claim to our family. I've legally changed my name. I'm not Natasha Bennett anymore. I'm Natasha Cole, using Mom's maiden name. I did this because you shouldn't have to share a name with me, because our parents shouldn't have to choose between their daughters, because the Bennett name is yours now, not mine. When I get out of prison, I'm moving across the country. I'll be starting over completely. New name, new state, new life. You'll never have to see me or think about me again. I know this doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't erase the damage. But maybe it gives you some peace knowing that I'm taking full responsibility and removing myself from your life permanently. You deserved better than what I did to you. You deserved a sister who supported you instead of destroyed you. I'm sorry I couldn't be that sister. I hope you find happiness, Naomi. Real happiness. The kind that comes from living authentically and being surrounded by people who genuinely love you. You've earned it 1,000 times over. Natasha. I read the letter 3 times, looking for manipulation, for hidden agendas, for any sign that this was another scheme, but all I found was what seemed like genuine remorse. The name change surprised me. I looked it up. She really done it, legally changed her name to Natasha Cole, given up the Bennett name entirely. I didn't respond to the letter, didn't write back, didn't acknowledge it, didn't give her the satisfaction of knowing I'd read it, because while the apology might have been genuine, I owed her nothing, not forgiveness, not closure, not even confirmation that her words had reached me. But privately, alone in my apartment, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, I wasn't ready for that, might never be ready for that, but a kind of release, like I'd been holding tension in my body for years and could finally let it go. She was taking responsibility. She was removing herself from my life. She was facing consequences and acknowledging harm. It didn't fix what she'd broken, but it was something. A small thing, maybe, but something nonetheless. I put the letter in a drawer and went back to my life, the life I'd rebuilt, the life that was mine. And I didn't think about Natasha again for a very long time. 3 years after the trial, I was invited to speak at a national identity theft prevention conference in New York. It was the biggest audience I'd addressed, over 1,000 people, mostly security professionals, law enforcement, and victim advocates. I stood backstage, listening to my introduction, feeling nervous butterflies that had nothing to do with the size of the crowd. This was different from the smaller talks I'd given. This was a keynote address. This was my story on the biggest stage I'd been on yet. Please welcome Naomi Bennett, author of The Other Twin and survivor of one of the most elaborate identity theft cases in recent history. I walked onto that stage to applause, and as I looked out at the sea of faces, I thought about the woman I'd been 4 years ago, the woman who'd stood outside her own apartment building watching someone else live her life, the woman who'd been gaslit by her own family, the woman who'd lost everything and had to claw her way back from nothing. That woman would never have imagined standing here, speaking to thousands, being called a survivor instead of crazy. Thank you for that introduction, I began. My name is Naomi Bennett, and for 3 years, someone else used that name. Someone else lived my life. Someone else was me in every way that mattered legally, professionally, socially. And the most horrifying part wasn't the theft itself. It was that nobody believed me when I tried to stop it. I told the story, all of it. Not the sanitized version from my book, but the raw, real version. The moments of complete despair, the times I'd wanted to give up, the relationships that had been destroyed, the family members who'd chosen my sister's lies over my truth. Identity theft isn't just about stolen credit cards or fraudulent bank accounts, I said. It's about being erased, about watching someone else inhabit your life while you're pushed into the shadows, about everyone you love and trust believing you're delusional when you tell them the truth. I saw people in the audience nodding, some wiping tears. These were people who understood, people who had experienced similar violations or who worked with victims who had. But here's what I learned through this nightmare. The truth is powerful. It might take time to emerge. It might require evidence and patience and strategic planning. But the truth will come out eventually. And when it does, it's undeniable. I talked about the investigation, the evidence gathering, the trap we'd set at Phillips and Associates. I talked about the trial and the verdict. I talked about rebuilding my life from scratch. And then I talked about something I'd never addressed publicly before: forgiveness. People ask me all the time if I've forgiven my sister, if I've forgiven my parents for not believing me, if I've forgiven the system that failed me. And honestly, I don't know. Some days I think I have. Some days the anger comes back fresh and raw. But what I've learned is that forgiveness isn't a requirement for healing. You can heal without forgiving. You can move forward without absolving the people who hurt you. What matters more than forgiveness is reclamation, taking back what was stolen, not just the tangible things like your name and your job, but the intangible things, your sense of self, your trust in your own reality, your belief that you deserve better. My sister took 3 years of my life. I'll never get those years back, but I can choose what I do with the years I have left, and I choose to use them helping others who've experienced similar violations. I choose to be the voice of belief that I needed when I was going through hell. The speech ended with a standing ovation. People lined up afterward to talk to me, to share their own stories, to thank me for giving voice to their experiences. I stood there for 2 hours, listening, offering support, being the person I wished I'd had when I was going through hell. One woman waited until the end. She approached me hesitantly, her eyes red from crying. My name is Amanda, and 6 months ago, my best friend stole my identity, used my social security number to open credit cards, took out loans in my name, destroyed my credit. When I tried to report it, she told everyone I was mentally ill and making false accusations. Nobody believed me. My own family thought I was being paranoid. "Are you still going through it?" I asked. "I'm at the beginning of the legal process. It feels impossible, like I'm never going to prove it, like she's going to get away with it." I took her hands in mine. "She won't get away with it. It feels impossible right now, but you're going to get through this. Keep documenting everything. Keep building your case. Keep believing in your own reality even when everyone around you doubts it. The truth will come out eventually." "How did you not give up?" she asked. Because giving up would have meant she won, and I refused to let her win. You have to refuse too. You have to be more stubborn than the gaslighting, more determined than the doubt, more committed to your truth than they are to their lies. She hugged me then, crying into my shoulder, and I held her the way I wished someone had held me, the way Simone had held me, passing forward the support I'd received. This was why I'd survived, not just to reclaim my own life, but to help others reclaim theirs. 5 years after Natasha's arrest, I was sitting in my home office, an actual home office now, in a condo I'd purchased with money from my book and my work with Nicole's firm, when my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Naomi Bennett?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Zara Cole. I'm your sister Natasha's parole officer." My stomach dropped. Is something wrong? Did she violate parole? No, nothing like that. Actually, she's been a model prisoner and parolee, early release for good behavior. But that's not why I'm calling. She paused. "Miss Bennett, your sister asked me to give you a message. She said you might not want to hear from her directly, but she wanted you to know something important." "What is it?" "She started a nonprofit organization called Second Chance Identity. It helps people who've committed identity fraud make amends to their victims and rebuild their lives ethically. She's been speaking at prisons, working with rehabilitation programs, trying to prevent others from making the mistakes she made." I was silent, processing this information. "She also wanted you to know that she read your book," Zara continued. "She said reading about what she put you through, from your perspective, was the hardest thing she's ever done, but it was also necessary. She said she needed to fully understand the harm she caused." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because she's helping people, Miss Bennett, real people who are going through what you went through. She uses her experience to help victims understand their rights, to help them build cases against their perpetrators. She's turned her crime into redemption." After I hung up, I sat there for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in 5 years. I Googled Natasha Cole. The search results showed a website for Second Chance Identity. Professional, well-designed, clearly legitimate. There were testimonials from victims who'd been helped, articles about her rehabilitation, even a TED Talk about accountability and redemption. I watched the talk, saw my sister, who I hadn't seen in person since the trial, standing on a stage, telling her story. Not as the victim, but as the perpetrator, owning her crimes, acknowledging the harm, using her experience to help others. I destroyed my twin sister's life. I stole her identity, her career, her relationships. I gaslit her and made everyone think she was crazy. I did all of this deliberately, selfishly, cruelly. And for 3 years, I got away with it. But the truth came out, as truth always does, and I went to prison, as I deserved to. And I spent 5 years thinking about what I'd done, really thinking about it, not just feeling sorry for myself, but genuinely grappling with the weight of my choices. And here's what I learned. We all have the capacity for cruelty. We all have the ability to rationalize terrible things when it serves our interests. But we also have the capacity for change, for genuine remorse, for making amends even when forgiveness is impossible. I can never undo what I did to my sister. I can never give her back the 3 years I stole or repair the relationships I destroyed. But I can use my experience to help others. I can be honest about what I did and why, so that maybe someone else won't make the same choices. I can help victims of identity fraud understand they're not crazy, they're not alone, and justice is possible. My sister wrote a book called The Other Twin. If you want to understand the real impact of identity theft, read that book. See the damage through her eyes. I've read it 17 times now. Each time I find new ways I failed her, new depths to the harm I caused. But each time, I also find more motivation to do better, to be better. I'll never be able to apologize enough. I'll never be able to make it right, but I can spend the rest of my life trying. The talk ended, and I sat there staring at my computer screen. This wasn't manipulation. This wasn't an attempt to worm her way back into my life. This was genuine transformation. Natasha, Tasha now, apparently, had taken the worst thing she ever done and turned it into something meaningful. She wasn't trying to redeem herself in my eyes. She was trying to prevent others from going through what I went through. I closed the laptop and walked to my window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, my twin sister was living her own life, a life built on honesty this time, on accountability, on genuine growth. We'd never have a relationship again. That bridge was burned beyond repair. But knowing that she'd taken responsibility, that she'd changed, that she was using her experience to help others, it brought a peace I hadn't expected to feel. My phone buzzed. A text from Simone. "Dinner tomorrow? I want to hear about the NYC speech." I smiled and texted back, "Absolutely, 7 p.m.?" This was my life now. Real friends who'd proven their loyalty. Meaningful work, helping victims find justice. A home that was mine, a name that was mine, an identity that was mine and mine alone. Natasha had tried to erase me, but I'd come back stronger. I turned my erasure into a story of survival. I turned the worst thing that ever happened to me into purpose. And that was better than any revenge could ever be. Thank you for listening to my story. If you found it helpful or inspiring, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. And drop a comment telling me where you're joining from and whether you've ever experienced something similar. Building this community of survivors and supporters means everything. Stay strong out there and never stop fighting for your truth.